So hey, today is a good day to be here. We are starting a brand new series. It's a series about finances, and I will come clean right off the top. This is not an area where people have ever pointed at me and said, you got to talk to Rob when it comes to finances. This is not one of my fortes. There's a lot of things that I might be decent at, some things I'm actually good at. When it comes to finances, it's not one of them. I feel like I know the Bible fairly well, probably better than average. But when it comes to finances, again, I'm like, I know we need to preach about it. I know it's important, but it's not an area that I feel particularly gifted or knowledgeable about. So from time to time when that happens to me, what I'll do is I will lean on others who know more about it. And so like I did with our sex topic, I'm doing this on our finance topic. I'm leaning on Life.Church. Life.Church is a church down in the States. It's a really big church. Craig Groeschel is our senior pastor. And he did a sermon series called Making Change. I made a slight change to that, and I'm calling it Make It Rain. And it's going to be all about finances. So Make It Rain, for those who don't know, this is a baller term, okay? When someone goes into a club, usually a rapper, occasionally an athlete, someone who has just wads of cash, or at least they want to give the impression that they are incredibly well off, they'll go in and they'll make it rain in the club. And so that just means they take the money and they'll just throw it out, right? Or they'll throw it up in the air like this, and it just comes dribbling down, and it's raining money. And they're like, yeah, I can do that. I don't think that's fiscally responsible, so I don't want us to go into clubs and be doing that. There's more to it than that, and that's the reason I chose Make It Rain, and that'll be evident throughout the series. But all that to say, I would love to be able to do that. I would love to be able to walk into like the mall or like the dollar store and be like, "What's up, everybody?" and just throw the money in the air and have it fall down. Like, I would love to be in a financial position where I could do that. I might be able to do that with Monopoly money. Even then, I'd have to like budget it. But wouldn't it be great just to be able to walk anywhere you go, just be like, "Yeah, I got it covered, no problem." You know, everyone in the restaurant tonight, it's on me because I'm that guy. I would love to be able to make it rain like that. Like I said, it's about more than that, so we'll get to that later on in weeks to come. But this week, we're going to talk about something that you guys have probably heard before, but maybe not thought of when it comes to money. This week, we're going to find out that less is more. In fact, the next week, we're going to learn that stress is bad. Week after that, giving is good. And finally, tomorrow matters. And so these are the four topics of the coming week. So less is more, stress is bad, giving is good, and tomorrow matters. And I want these four ideas to sink in over the next month. As you guys come each and every week and are here on time, I want you guys to get this idea that less is more, stress is bad, giving is good, and tomorrow matters. So we're going to do a repeat after me. And I hate this when I'm in the audience, but tough. So, say it with me. Less is more. Stress is bad. Giving is good. And tomorrow matters. Again. One last time, all together. Less is more. Stress is bad. Giving is good. And tomorrow matters. Well done. Less is more seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but if there's something, less is more might apply for things like Brussels sprouts. You know, like my kids would probably agree with that. You know, actually, one of my kids likes them. But if something is good, if one is good, then more is better, right? Like if you go to the ice cream store and they say, "Do you want one scoop or two?" You'd say, "Well, that's a stupid question," right? Obviously, I want more because ice cream is good. So if one is good, more is better. Generally, that would be true. But I discovered at a fairly early age that there is something as too much of a good thing. So I don't remember how old I was. I know I was old enough to not be watched every moment of the day. Plus, it was like the 80s, so like kids just ran wild. But I was still young enough to not really know better. Or if I knew better, to not really care. So my parents were having a party, and since we were, good, godly people, this was not like a booze it up, go crazy party. This was just like a pop and chips and brownies and cake and all kinds of yummy stuff party. And so in our house, we never had pop when I was a kid. We almost never had it. And so for us, pop was like a really special thing. It was really exciting. And so we had this pop party. And so I was super excited, and my parents weren't really watching me. And so I went up to my mom, and I said, "Mom, is it okay if I have a pop?" And she was, feeling happy because she's hosting a party and there's everybody there and we're having a good time. She's like, "Sure, go ahead, you can have a pop." So I grabbed one and, chugged it down. What she didn't know is that I had already asked my dad that same thing earlier, to which he said yes. So I had grabbed one and chugged it down. So I had at least 2 pops. I probably had more. But then we also discovered that, this is gross, when people drank a pop, they would often leave it somewhere, especially if they thought it was done. They thought it was done. Us as little kids who were like pop crazy, we discovered that you could get the last little bit of everyone else's pop if you took it and bent it in half until there was a little crack in the side and then sucked the last remaining bits of pop, which I now know is spit. But at the time I didn't know that, and I just thought, sweet, free pop. And so we're going around. My mom probably wondered, why are all these cans bent crazy? And so we're sucking back the pop. I mean, we're eating brownies, cake, ice cream, all this great stuff, and I was having a blast. Until I started not feeling so good. And I learned that in some things, less is more. My mom learned that as well, unfortunately, in the middle of the night when I came to get her and threw up all over the place because I wasn't feeling good. It is possible to have too much of a good thing. Sometimes less is more. And imagine all of us can relate to that story in some degree, probably not sucking other people's backwash, but somewhere in your life, you probably had a similar experience. Maybe it's something to do with food. You've learned the hard way that less is more. You should not have eaten all that you ate. Maybe it's with a relationship. I've got a slide here with a couple of, maybe when you're dating, have you ever dated somebody that was just a little bit too much into you? And you're like, okay, back off. I need to back things off a little bit, okay? You're too much. Maybe it comes with pets. You've got 2 cats, 3 fish, a turtle, and it becomes like a zoo. You got 1 dog, maybe, I'm a cat person. I'm sorry. I'm not. I know you guys love your dogs, but it couldn't work for me. 1 would be too many for me. If 1 is good, more is better, but there are times when maybe you've realized that less is more. We are going to look at 1 key verse this morning. With this idea that less being more, we're looking at 1 key verse. A lot of times I'll come up here and I will preach from like 20 verses from the Bible and just go through one by one. But, if less is more, we're going to look at 1 key verse. A couple to give it some context, but really we're looking at 1 verse. And what I want you to know is that if you are to truly embrace this 1 verse, if you were to actually take this idea and put it inside you, and if it actually made a difference in your life, it would lead to a more peaceful life. This would make a huge difference in your life, this 1 verse. And so we are going to be looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon. So for those who were here for our sex series, we did Song of Solomon, and we talked all about a romantic relationship. This one here, it's a book of wisdom. So Solomon was like the ultimate baller. He was the ultimate, like, it's on me, go into a club and make it rain kind of guy. There was nothing that he went without. He was the richest man on earth at the time. He had everything you could possibly imagine, possibly want. And so he went through this entire journey of what it meant to find meaning in life. Because he found that having enough money wasn't enough. Having enough women wasn't enough. He had 1,000 wives, 300 wives, 700 concubines. He found that wasn't enough. And so he went through this journey of trying to figure out what does it mean to have enough. And so Ecclesiastes is all about that. And you'll find out that he says, I tried this. It was meaningless. I tried this. It was meaningless. Again and again and again. And so we come to this chapter 4, and there's just a handful of verses here I want to look at. Our key verse here, it says, and yet, better to have 1 handful with quietness than 2 handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. And so I felt like I needed to put this in some kind of context, because it says and yet. So what is he talking about, and yet? So let's back up a couple verses, starting with verse 4. Remember, this is a guy who's going through his entire life just trying to find meaning in life. And he says, then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. Most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Solomon has said, I've tried it all, I've seen other people try it. He said, this is not enough. This is not a good enough motivation. This is a bad motivation, because no matter what, you are always going to find somebody who has more than you, except for Solomon. But anyone else, that he's seen other people, they strive, they're motivated by someone else's success. When they finally achieve that, I've made it, they look up the ladder and there's still somebody else there. And they feel like, man, I have not arrived yet. I need to go a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And it's never enough to satisfy the desire they have in them. It's a bad motivation. Speaking of ice cream, we went for ice cream last week. And, you go to Brum's Dairy, and a kid size is plenty. In fact, I don't really want to say it, but I want to say that I'm from now on going to institute a rule that in our house, all we ever get, all of us, is the kid size. The thing is, with small, you can get half scoops. So it means you can mix your flavors. And so there's a part of me that wants to say, yeah, but I might want some chocolate and something else that has chocolate in it. But anyway, we went to Brum's Dairy, and two of our younger children got the kiddie size, and the rest of us all got the small size. One of my daughters was completely thrilled with her ice cream. She was very happy with it. She's licking away. She's, thanks for bringing us ice cream. And then she looked over and saw what her brother had. This is envy, okay? She was satisfied with what she had until she saw that someone else had more. And she realized that, in her opinion, at this point, less was not more. What's interesting is that almost all of us ended up not finishing our ice cream because it was too much. So we had plenty, but envy is a bad motivation for success. It's like chasing the wind. I actually really like that phrase. You can't ever catch the wind. You might be able to put it in a sail to push you forward, but you can't catch it. It's like it's nothing. It's nebulous. You know it's there, but you can't catch it. And Solomon is saying that that's what chasing this kind of success is like. It's just chasing the wind. You'll never be able to fully grasp it. And so on one hand, he says, motivation by envy is not a good thing. On the other hand, verse 5, he says, fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin. So I observe that most people are motivated by success because of the envy of their neighbors, or because they envy their neighbors. The other ones, they're fools because of their idle hands, they lead them to ruin. So he said it's not good to strive and chase and to do it because you're envying someone else. At the same time, it's not good to be lazy. On the one hand, it's not good to chase after two handfuls and do it out of envy. The other hand, you're not even going to have one handful. Your hands are going to be empty because of your idle hands. You just fold them on your chest and have a little rest, a little nap. It leads to ruin, he says. And then we come to our key verse. And yet, so he's given us the guardrails on each side. Don't do this, don't do that. And he kind of gives us the middle path. And yet, better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. He's basically saying less is more in some ways. It's better to have one handful. In fact, the words for handful here are different in the original language. One handful, he's saying, is like this, like an open handful, being able to put something in there. You have one handful of something, which gives you your other hand to do whatever you want with. Then to have two handfuls, and this is like a grasping fist, with hard work and chasing the wind. You say, this is better than this. Because this, you can do everything you want. You can hug your kids, you can do whatever you want, have some fun. This, you can't do anything else. It's like this is all you're ever going to have, is just these fists. One handful with quietness, peace, shalom, sort of like just a feeling like, okay, this is enough. It's not one handful with like, we're starving to death. It's one handful with, we're contentment. Rather than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. The word for hard work there is actually striving. It's tied in together with the chasing the wind to say that it's never going to be enough. The two handfuls are never enough. You're always going to be trying to grasp more in there. And so it's not a case of like 2 scoops of ice cream is better than 1. It's like 2 scoops of ice cream and then 3 and 4 and 5, and it's never enough. And you're always going to want more, making you sick. Better to have 1 handful with quietness than 2 handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. He's basically saying, it's better to have less of what doesn't matter so I can experience more of what does. He's saying, let go of that one that doesn't matter so you can have more of what does matter. I want you to picture yourself getting the news that you have 3 months to live. You just gone to the doctor, and the doctor says, bad news. We didn't see it coming, but you only got 3 months. I want you to think about what your top 3 things are that are really important. In fact, I've actually laid lines out in your bulletin for this. Think it through. Write it down this week. Think about what are your top 3 things that really matter. What's really important in your life? When you ask people this question, what do you think comes up? What are the top 3 things? What are the most important things in your life? Family. You hear a lot of that. You hear a lot of family. You know, people on their deathbed. I wish I'd spent more time with my family. I wish I'd spent more time getting my life right with God. I wish I'd spent more time with my kids. Those kind of things. You know what didn't make the list when people are asked this? No one says, I wish I had more money in the bank. You know, I wish I had nicer shoes. I wish I had the latest iPhone. That would really make things better. I wish I had a leather sofa. I wish I had a brand new car. I wish I had new countertops. I wish I had more followers on social media. I wish I had more jewelry. None of that makes the list when people are asked this question. If you only had 3 months to live, or literally people who are dying on their deathbed, they say, what do you wish you had more of? It's never those things. It's always, I wish I had done more with God, with my relationships with each other, my relationships with my family, with friends. It's less of what doesn't matter, so I can experience more of what does matter. That's what less is more living is all about. So I'm going to look at 3 things that, these are your takeaways. 3 things you can do for less is more kind of living. First one is cut back. We got to cut back. Life does not consist in the abundance of stuff. I want you to get that idea in your mind, that your life does not consist of the amount of things you have, the stuff in your life. And we have so much stuff, don't we? I have a bookshelf at home with all these books. I have bookshelves in my office with a lot of books. Some of them I've actually read, you know, but a lot of them I have not. And I'll go to a secondhand store and I'll pick up, oh yeah, that looks good, and I'll put it on my shelf. And then when I finish a book, I go to look at the shelves and say, yeah, but I wonder what Amazon has. You know, or I wonder what they have in the library. I want to go get something more, something else, something different, not the ones that I already have. I do the same thing with movies. You know, I've got sleeves of movies at home that I like to have them because every once in a while I think, hey, I might like to watch this movie. It's been a while since I've watched a video I have because why? I've got Netflix, right? I've got iTunes, and I can rent movies off that. We can buy movies at the store. We go to the secondhand store, and hey, I go look at the movie racks. We have stuff and stuff and stuff. One of the nicest buildings you see on your way into Ottawa is that storage facility. I mean, they're nicer than apartment buildings, right? And what is it for? It's for people to store their extra stuff. I have so much stuff, I don't have anywhere to put it. I got to rent a place and pay somebody to hang on to my stuff for me. Now, I understand there's probably times when storage units make sense, but not so that you could just put your extra stuff there. Not as a general way of life. We have too much stuff. I think we need to cut back. We need to have less stuff. If you have less stuff, you will have more time for friends, more time with family, more experiences. Spend less on the things and spend more on experiences. Second thing is clear out. I've heard this say, you got to clear out as if your life depends on it. Not that you're literally going to die, but think about the life you want to live. What kind of life do you really want to live? Your life depends on the choices you make. So you need to clear some things out. My wife is really into minimalism. She's really good at this. You want to make room for yourself physically and also like emotionally, spiritually. You need to get things out of your way so you have more room in your life, more room in your soul. I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but earlier this week I cleaned out my closet, got rid of some things that don't fit anymore, and just some things that were kind of like, they don't look good anymore. I had 5 bags of clothes. I still have too many clothes. Okay, I've got too much stuff, so I got to clear out. Like I said, my wife is really good at doing this. We probably will never have a garage sale. We only ever had one once. It's because we were moving and getting rid of as much as we could. We never have garage sales because as soon as we have something that we don't need, she's like, get it out, get it out. I mean, she's really amazing at this. I would also say if this is hitting you and you're thinking, you know what, I got more stuff than I need to, and I need to get rid of some stuff, we as a church are going to be having a garage sale coming up. So think about that. Think about, do I really need this, or could I send this on to somebody else? One thing that might help you get rid of some stuff, and I know I need to internalize this myself with some of my things, is to thank the thing for the purpose it served. And so you take a book that you say, you know what, I really enjoyed that book. I might like to read it again someday. What you do is you just sort of say, thank you, book, for enriching my life. I'm going to pass you on to somebody else so you can enrich theirs. Or with a movie, or with your clothes, or with some other gift. Say, you know, it served its purpose in my life. I don't need to keep it anymore. I'm going to get rid of it. One thing that helps with this is if you get one, give one. So one of the things, like I got rid of all kinds of blue jeans because every time I would get a pair of blue jeans, I would just put them up on the shelf. Hey, that's a really good sale on jeans. I got to get them. Cool. They go on top of the stack. And I had a stack of jeans like that. And I would never wear them all. And so t-shirts, I had all kinds of t-shirts. As soon as I get one, we should give one, okay? Put one in the rotation, take another one out of the rotation. One really helpful thing for this, if you got a closet, put all your hangers in line. When you wear something, move it to the left side. Every time you move something, move it to the left side or right side, whatever. Just move it to the end. And when you realize that you haven't worn this item of clothing, you know, this plaid suit jacket or whatever it is, for like a year, get rid of it. Say, you don't need it anymore. If there's something that you haven't used in a long time, it's okay to get rid of it. Give it to somebody else who would really appreciate it. It's an idea that helps. It's basically understanding that your life does not consist of the abundance of your possessions. Your life does not consist of your stuff. The third thing, so we got cut back, we got clear out. Third one is pay off. What's next week? Do you guys remember? Less is more. Stress is bad. Is anybody here who thinks to themselves, you know what, my debt really makes me feel at peace? Is there anyone here thinking, my monthly credit card payment calms my soul? It's actually something that's great. I can set my calendar to it. You know, oh, credit card payment, that's good. And then I have to remember I do other things too. Owing people money brings me joy. Can anyone say that? No, you say it causes me stress. It causes me worry. It gives me fear. Those things aren't fun. What is fun is paying off your debt, paying off your credit card payment, spending your last car payment. Say, I'm done. I don't need to pay any more for that. What did we do as a church? I wasn't here when it happened, but what did you guys do as a church when your mortgage was paid? You say, well, paid off the mortgage, that's great. What did you do? What? You burned it, right? You said, ha, we do not have this around our neck any longer. It's gone. We get to now spend the money we were spending on that on God's ministry. We get to do something more exciting with it. It is not fun to have debt. It's fun to pay off debt. Better to have one handful with quietness than 2 handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. Better is a car payment that's paid off than a new one with massive payments. Better is a smaller house than to fight over who spent more money this month. better to have financial margin and to help others than it is to live on the edge. Now, less is more doesn't mean you don't have anything. Doesn't mean you don't own anything. In fact, it might mean that you own some really nice stuff. It's better to own a few nice things that you do own than to have a bunch of junk that owns you. Better a few nice things that you own than a bunch of junk that owns you. Better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. We look at people and think, well, they're rich because they have so much stuff. The truth is, the richest people are not those who have the most, but for those who need the least. The richest people are not those who have the most, but those who need the least. You guys ever heard this phrase, that he who dies with the most toys wins? I would say he who dies with the most toys has probably, not always, but probably squandered an opportunity to help others. I'm going to ask the worship team to come back up. The last thing I want to say about this is that your life is too valuable to waste on meaningless things. Your life is too valuable to waste on meaningless things. I mean, God has given us a gift of our life, and it goes incredibly short. I mean, it goes by incredibly quickly, and it's too valuable to waste on useless stuff. So better is one handful and children that you love, being able to wrap your arms around them. Better is one handful and having close friends. Better is one handful and having vacation memories, being able to look back on experiences that you've enjoyed. Better is one handful and a good marriage than fighting over finances. Better is one handful and the ability to make a difference in someone's life. It's better to have one handful and a passion for Jesus. I mean, the song we sang this morning, better is one day in your courts. Better is one day. Less is more. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. We've got to remember that less is more. And this is so true for our spiritual lives. Sometimes we get so focused on gaining stuff that we forget about Jesus. We forget about what he's called us to do. Better to have one handful and be able to complete the task that he's given us, to be able to serve him with our finances, with our lives, than it is to have two hands grasping, chasing after the wind, trying to fulfill something that you will never be able to satisfy. Let's sing.